Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jake Watson. I am here on the Evolve Your Game podcast. We are going to be going over the ADCC 2022 World Championship brackets. I want to thank Hector for inviting me onto the show. We're going to be going over the under 66, under 77, under 88, all the brackets of the men's divisions, under 99, over 99, and the under 65, over 65 for the women's divisions. These brackets, and we're breaking down the matches because predicting is an impossible feat. I would say that would be very, very difficult. What we're going to be going over is the matchups that might happen. There's so many amazing competitors. This really is, multiplied by the amount of people that are going to be at the event, the venue at the Thomas and Mack Arena in Las Vegas, the promotion, Joe Rogan sponsoring it, all this gigantic news surrounding this event, and Mo Jasmine put together another amazing event, but this is surely going to blow all the other ADCCs out of the water, and I'm very excited and very honored to be able to commentate it. I wrote some notes down here, Hector, for actually I wrote them. There's no typing here. There was, that busted out old school.
Brother, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to, talk about every bracket. Man, every bracket on this ADCC, like I said, Mo did an amazing job. All those guys around it, Flo, man, every fight could be a final. That's how I felt, especially in 66 and 77 is stacked. And man, we can get started and start off on a 66.
Yeah, 66. I have some great notes. What's crazy about the 66 kilogram division is I think obviously the big invite was Kennedy Maciel. Filling in, his father is retired, and he's the son of Cobrinha. But also, there's amazing competitors such as Gabriel Souza. And I'm looking down at my notes here, but Gabriel Souza's in the division, Ethan Krenlinston, Gio Martinez, Diego Pato Oliveira. Ruan Alvarenga is a really big invite, in my opinion. If you look on his BJJ Heroes, he only has 4 matches documented at black belt. And one of those victories was against Fabricio Andre, who is also in the division.
Yes.
AJ, in my opinion, is a very interesting, he's kind of a division breaker. And He's very, very skilled, and he has a great style for ADCC. And I'm very interested to see how the brackets are going to play down, because I believe that he's somebody who could make it to the final, depending on who's in front of him.
That's exactly what we were talking about. Actually, I was talking to Kennedy and Cobrinha, right? They've been training here, and I told him my opinion. You know what I mean? Honestly, I think that he's going to be a problem for a lot of people, because once it gets to the wrestling part and the scrambles, he's very good at those positions. Remember, ADCC, you've got to control this person more than 3 seconds for you to get points. So the scrambles are going to come into play, the strategy. But there's a lot of other guys too. I honestly think Josh Cisneros is a dark horse there as well. He's got great wrestling, right? Fabricio's got he showed that he's got great wrestling as well. Hayes is Baby Shark. He's shown some. So there's some top guys right there that could give a run for their money in that division. Obviously Gary Tonin is in there. That's a tough one right there. So I see a lot of those matchups, coming down to a lot of the scrambles in the wrestling. What do you think?
I think you're definitely right. I think Gary Tonin is a very important name in the bracket. He is somebody who, he did so well at 77 kilograms, making it to the semifinal, losing to JT Torres, who's been dominant in that division for the past 2 ADCCs. But Gary Tonin cutting the weight, I think the tournament is also, it's interesting how well the weight cut goes for Gary Tonin and how he feels at this lower weight. Could be a big factor in this whole bracket, because Lion Killer is not a joke. He is a very, very prominent force in the division. And, we've mentioned all these names, but it seems like there's just no shortage of names, because we haven't even mentioned Kolabati or Keith Krikorian yet. And Keith Krikorian at West Coast Trials looked like he could not lose. He was so good at West Coast Trials. Watching him and being able to commentate and just see how he did it was magical, how he was able to weave together that performance. And I can't say enough about Kolabate. The kid is he's been old. I met him when he was an orange belt, and he was just this kid covered head to toe in patches of sponsors, wearing a blue King's gi, throwing flying arm bars on kids. It felt like yesterday. And now we're watching him go to ADCC after, I believe, he submitted everybody at the East Coast Trials. And like you said, Diogo Hayes, I think, actually is a very cool addition as well, because he's a tactician. And the way that kid fights is
very technical.
Bro, he is very, like his match versus Diego Pato, for instance, is, if you watch that match, he does a very interesting thing. He lets go of back control from standing on multiple occasions during that match. And at first glance, you're like, why would he do that? He's letting go of a great position. But then when you start to think, like, I think it happened in the first half of the match, and then it happened later on in the match, but he was getting inside of Pato's head a little bit. And he was also winding time down. He was picking his spot. Maybe he didn't feel like it was a great opportunity to go for something. And that is crazy that a 20-year-old kid can have that level of foresight in a match. It really speaks to how deep this bracket goes. And there's a lot of very young competitors in this bracket. Like Josh Cisneros is younger than me, and I'm 24. It's a very, very interesting bracket.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you said, Cole Abate. I've been seeing this kid since he was, maybe yellow, orange. He's been killing out there. They've been doing great with him since he moved to AOJ. And again, he's surrounded with the guys that have the experience, that have been there, like Rafa Mendez and, Guillermo's, which one of the greatest, coaches out there right now. He's doing great. He's got a great program going with those guys. Diego Hayes, I've had the opportunity to see this kid grow. He's gotten better and better. He's very technical. I feel like he also can be, aggressive at times, but the majority of the time he's very technical. And I think if you were to see a match between him and Cole, it'll be very, very close, because they're very technical in both situations, whether it's on top or on bottom. They know how to play the game. So that's a good matchup that I like to see too. You know what I mean? It'll come down to the wire.
Absolutely. And there's a few things also that are kind of interesting to note about this bracket. There are a few names that are lesser known. I mean, the bracket is rife with talent from head to toe. And I think it would be remiss of us to not mention, like, Ashley Williams, who's a great competitor out of the UK. I mean, he has wins over Keith Krikorian, Paulo Miao, Thiago Macedo, Ethan Krenliston. To say that he's not a very prominent force, as well as Ethan Krenliston, would be, I would think it would just be unfair. And Sam McNally, though, he won or he's from East Coast Jiu-Jitsu. He won the second European trials, and he's from Ireland. 6 of his 9 submission wins have come by armbar. And in no-gi, I mean, typically I think right now the meta is centered more towards leg locks, and leg locks play a huge role in the meta game. Even the defensive leg locks, even somebody like Keith Krikorian, who uses the leg lock game to get up in wrestling situations. It's a huge thing to take into consideration. And the last name, Jeremy Skinner, who has victories over Taliesin Suarez, who is a gi.
Right.
And I mean, he trains with Absolute MMA with Lachlan Giles, and Lachlan, I don't think anybody who watched 2019 got a new, Lachlan Giles instructional after that. It was, this bracket is huge. And one thing about Diogo Hayes that is interesting is this bracket is full of lightweight and featherweight competitors typically, but Diogo Hayes is a light featherweight. He's for the lightest division at ADCC. Some might even say he's a little undersized, but he's very strong. He showcased that at the trials. He has great wrestling, great fundamentals, a really good guard, by the way. It's very, very difficult to discern how one might even pass his guard. And Pato's so talented. Gi, no-gi, world champion, black belt, ADCC trials runner-up, invited to ADCC in the division above in the 66 kilogram division. He's invited. But man, a really, really crazy division. And one thing about Diego Pato, this is actually a really cool statistic. Across his entire grappling record, Diego Pato has a 7-to-1 win-loss ratio. So basically, for every 7 times he wins, he loses. And that's a 77-11 total grappling record. Absolutely incredible division. Very exciting.
Right. Let's not forget about Gabriel Souza. Gabriel Souza also great wrestling. We just had him on EUG. I think it was EUG 3 or EUG 4. He was on there. He displayed some wrestling as well. So
absolutely,
this division is very deep. I think it's going to come down to a couple of 4 or 5 guys, that can really sneak their way inside there. I think Gary Tonin is going to be a problem with these guys. Maybe depending on how the weight cut went. We're all curious about that weight cut, but I think Gary can be in that mix at the semifinals. I feel I'm curious if Fabricio makes it, and then obviously you got to fight your training partner, right, in the second round. If he makes it, who's going to give who the pass?
Yeah.
But I like to see a good.
Well, you can't. You
right.
can't really at ADCC. You have to fight.
Right. So I'd like to see what would be a good one. I'd like to see Fabricio and Gary Tonin. I think that'd be an explosive matchup. We've seen Kennedy and Josh. I mean, they've gone back and forth on their matches as well. That'll be a good matchup to see again. But they've all got dynamic styles. I think Cole Batik, also, like I said, he can give a lot of people a lot of time, a hard time, because he's very technical and he's very strategic. So I like to see him maybe with Fabricio, or even off the bat with Kennedy or Diego Hayes, Baby Shark. I think that's a good matchup.
I think so too. And there's so many different possibilities of matchups. Really, like we don't know anything. I don't even think Mo Jasm knows anything yet. I think that he formulates the brackets the day before on purpose to keep the fans in suspense, and that's a really, it's teasing, but it's a very good strategy, marketing wise. But I think that some of the names that we really have to keep an eye on are names like Kennedy Maciel, names like Gary Tonin. And like I said, Gary Tonin, if he feels great in this under 66 kilogram division after the weight cut, I mean, he looked so great at 77. Imagine if he looks and feels as good for 77 as he does at 66. He's a force to be reckoned with. There's not a lot of people in this division who are as experienced at ADCC as Gary Tonin. And Kennedy Maciel, I think that him having the experience of being in the final, and he came up short to Tanquinho, but Tanquinho's a menace too. And it wasn't. And on top of that, he has a victory over Tyro Tolo. And Tyro Tolo was, of course, a lot lighter back then. Now he's competing in the 88 kilogram division, which we'll get to. I think people with similar styles as him will do well. I think that there are a lot of those incredible dynamic competitors that can they're like grenades. They just blow up, and that can, change the course of a bracket, such as Fabricio Andre. Fabricio Andre did actually lose to Diogo Hayes, I believe, at the South American. I believe they both competed at the first South American one. And they fought, and and Fabricio Andre got heel hooked by Diogo Hayes. But the second one, that is where Fabricio Andre got his.
And recently we saw Fabricio in the Who's Number One match. He did great on the wrestling. In one of the entanglements, you see him almost getting caught in the heel hooks. So again, with somebody like Gary Tonin, you could see the entanglements like that. That could be a little problem. But again, I'm sure Melky, he's done a great job and had these guys practice all these positions. I know that Melky does an amazing job with those kids, and he's got them very, very focused as well to look out for that kind of stuff. But I'm excited for that division.
Yeah, and I think that, like we had said earlier, I think that names like, if they have a good wrestling base, I believe that they can do very well. Like people like Keith Krikorian. Keith Krikorian does have a wrestling base, and we forget about that sometimes because of how good he is at leg locks. But he uses the leg locks to set up the wrestling. And he's already an ADCC veteran. He's competed in ADCC rule set so many times. But aside from him, Josh Cisneros and AJ Agazarm pose a similar threat. AJ brings a level of experience that I think is very valuable, especially because, and Gordon Ryan actually said this in a recent Flow Grappling. It was the Baddest Man on the Planet production that they posted, like the lead up to the above 99 kilogram division, and he said he was interested to see how people would respond to 17,000 people in attendance. And I think that is a big factor. And Hector, you've been around MMA fighters and you've been at the highest level. You've been at the highest stage of the UFC. It does something to fighters, does it not?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you're talking Brandon Moreno going in to 20, 30,000 people, and the music comes on, you start getting those goosebumps walking down that aisle. It's not easy. And again, AJ has the experience. He's fought with Cobrinha. He's been in the finals, with Cobra. I think 2017 is. Am I correct? And so he's been there. So again, like I said, he can whizzle his way in just like anybody else, And I think, like I said, I think this is one of the biggest stack division there is in ADCC. So I'm excited to watch.
And one more thing before we move on to the next division, AJ Agazarm did go and compete in the 77 kilogram division.
Ooh.
5 days notice and get to almost, I believe he got to the quarterfinal against and only losing to PJ Barch.
PJ Barch, yeah.
PJ Barch looked fantastic that tournament as well.
He did.
But man, you could tell like AJ Agazarm gave up a lot of size, something he's not not used to. I mean, he competes in the ultra heavyweight division a lot, and he's not. But it is a very, very interesting shakeup, and I think that AJ Agazarm definitely brings a lot to the table. I can't see. And by the way, with all of these divisions, making a prediction is going to be, who's going to make it to the final. I think what we're both trying to do is we're both trying to say, like, man, everything considered, who would probably be our safest bet? But even then,
right,
as a commentator and as an analyst, how could I ever say that? You know what I mean?
It's very hard because you don't know how that person is going to show up that day under the bright lights. Like you said, it's 11,000, 12,000 people there, 17,000. It's a lot. And if you're not used to being in that limelight like that, you're going to feel it. I don't care what you say. You're going to feel it because, man, like I said, Brandon, he's been in there and he still gets a little bit nervous, and it's just part of it, right? So, I mean, it's interesting to see who's going to come out on that day under the bright lights.
I have to prepare myself. I mean, I'm just commentating. I'm not even fighting. I could eat and drink whatever I want before I go out there and commentate. But when I hear Bruce Buffer announcing some of these names, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I feel like that's Bruce Buffer. Like, there's 17,000 people here. I better not mess up, So it is. There's just so much. This is just going to be such a magical weekend. I can already feel.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Mo and then those guys, Ricardo and everybody that done, Seth Daniels, man, that set up, all those guys, they do an amazing job. So I'm excited to see, man. I really, truly am. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to be there. I have one of my students. He's fighting at the Dana White Contender, Raul Rosas Jr. He's a 17-year-old kid that's going to be trying to get a contract. So if he gets a contract, he'll be the youngest ever in UFC history.
Real at 17.
At 17. Crazy, right?
They have to wait to fight until he's 18, or will he be able to fight?
No, he's fighting Tuesday, and he's still 17.
Oh. Who's he? What competitor?
His competitor's I think he's in his 20s, late 20s.
Late 20s? Dang, dude. Hey, that kid's a junior in high school.
I know, brother. No, it's crazy. So, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to be there. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm going to watch it from the comfort of my own home, or I'm going to be on my telephone watching it,
All right.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either. But I think that's our cue to move on to the under 77 kilogram division, isn't it?
Let's go.
So, some of the names that are in this division, the invites are Lachlan Giles, Majid Hage, who replaced Majid Hage had replaced
Davi Ramos?
Lucas Lepre. He replaced Lucas Lepre. Nikki Ryan, Dante Leon, Hanato Canuto, PJ Barch, Amy Varela, and Mateusz Szyszyński. And those are some really – that's a crazy list of just invites. But then the people who won their way – and, of course, JT Torres invited as a returning champion. But Tommy Langacker is a pretty interesting addition to this bracket, and we'll get more to that. Oliver Taza from Canada, Cade Ruotolo, William Tackett, Mika Galvao, Roberto Jimenez, Kenta Iwamoto. Those are the people who either are the returning champion or they won a trials. And I think that this is probably the toughest division in the tournament in the grand scheme. I think plus 99 is also incredibly tough. But I think that talking about just people who are gunning for JT Torres, this is definitely a worthy bracket for JT Torres. JT, I mean, he hasn't been scored on since 2011. He's looked incredible in every ADCC he's ever competed in. But, man, some of the names I think names like Tommy Langacker make this very interesting. I think names like Mika Galvao, William Tackett, Cade Ruotolo especially, and I think it's because the dynamic that Cade Ruotolo, Roberto Jimenez, JT Torres, PJ Barch, Andy Barella, these guys have cardio that is
Yes.
they could if ADCC was finals match time limit up until the final, they would still be fine. Like a 20-minute match leading up to the final for them is nothing. We saw athletes like Isaac Michel, who's also from B Team, and I think B Team focuses a lot on cardio, which is good for ADCC rule set. A lot of the athletes from B Team are just, I mean, they have such incredible physical prowess. And I think when people think physical prowess, they think like just a brute strength, but it's not just brute strength. It's also the ability to go forever. And I think we see a lot of that in this bracket. What do you think when you see this bracket?
Man, I recently had Andy on the podcast, Andy Varela. He's very confident about his skills, about what his goal is. Mm-hmm. He's going to be one of those guys that's going to make some noise in that bracket. Obviously, he's trained with Renato Canuto, right? Mm-hmm. So they're gonna end up fighting. So I'm sure those guys know each other pretty good. Roberto knows those guys pretty good. They've trained together. I think we just saw Tommy. He had a great match with Renato as well recently on one championship. Mm-hmm. And then honestly, I think the Mika is gonna give a lot of people a hard time. It all depends. Like you said, cardio is going to come into play. I think that's what's going to change on some of these guys. I feel if you got that cardio, you're going to do well. But like I said before, you've got to control the position for more than 3 or 4 seconds.
Yep.
That's tough. It's not your regular, rule set.
It's really not. And I think that when we look at some of the people like, Lachlan Giles or like Oliver Taza, or even, let's say, Majid Hage. We don't really look at wrestling, I think, as a huge problem for the first half of an ADCC match, right? Because leading up to the 10-minute match, and for the first half of that match, there's no score. And the second half, there is a score. So a lot of people, like Vinicius Trator did this in 2019. He would sit guard for the first half of the match, and then the second half of the match, he would stand up. And it's a smart strategy. But it also opens up the room for wrestlers like PJ Barch. They don't have to wrestle for the first 5 minutes. They can wrestle for the next 5. And the people who fight the good wrestlers are incentivized to go hard for submissions in the first half of the match. I would say from like a analyzing standpoint, what might be smart. And what I see sometimes, especially from watching the trials, I think that when a person who is not so well-versed in wrestling goes against someone who is well-versed in wrestling, there's this urgency to finish the fight before 5 minutes, because then you're dealing with somebody who thrives in the rule set that you're no longer thriving in. You thrive in a submission-only rule set. So people like Tommy Langacker, who's not known for his wrestling, they're going to be met with sort of okay, let's see how they do this. And Tommy Langacker won the trials. He won the trials in the second European trials, and that speaks enough to his ability to win in an ADCC rule set. But fighting the best competitors in the world, fighting the JT Torres level competitors of the world, I think that it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to the wrestling. I mean, Lachlan Giles, when he had his incredible absolute run, he mostly sat guard and submitted them fairly quickly. So we didn't see how Lachlan would have wrestled versus Muhammad Ali. We saw him heal with Muhammad Ali.
Straight to it. I really think that Giles is gonna, you know what I mean? He's one of those guys that slows the game down to his pace. He doesn't, like you said, he'll just sit and do his thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like Mikael is one of those guys that he's going to come full blown the first, because again, there's no points, right?
Yep.
And just try to get that submission as soon as possible as well. But he's got great wrestling, right? So he can wrestle after that. So I think that would be a pretty good matchup, just to see the style difference between Giles and Mika. That'd be a nice match that I like to see. I think another one that I like to see, which would be very explosive, would be either JT Torres and Andy, or JT and Renato. Those are great matchups as well. Tyra Tolo, I think that's a possibility. Yep. But yeah, I think there's a lot of quick guys in that division and that can wrestle. The majority of those guys can wrestle, and I don't see a slow pace. I see Dante Leon as well, a strong guy. He's fought Mika before. They've they met up. So I'm sure that he's going to make his adjustments as well. Honestly, I feel like this division is probably one of the toughest ones as well.
Absolutely. I think that obviously it's tempting to look like who would fight JT, but some of the cool matchups, like imagine Tommy Langacker versus Roberto Jimenez, two people who are crazy good with back takes, or Majid Hage and William Tackett. Both of them are really good half guard players with a dynamic submission set and a good ability to get out of stuff. I like Lachlan Giles versus Nicky Ryan for the sake of.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Nicky Ryan is B team, and Lachlan Giles coached Craig Jones before Craig Jones went to B team. So we see the dynamic change between I imagine that Craig Jones and Lachlan still talk a lot about
right.
But these matchups are pretty interesting, and there's a couple competitors that I think that are able to definitely shake things up. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in the main show, like Kenta Iwamoto, who has good judo and great top game. He used to play guard. Mateo Szynski, who has good wrestling, good guillotines. Basically, if you have good wrestling and good guillotines, that means you have good defense and good wrestling offense as well. I think that those are some of the matchups that I would definitely like to see. PJ Barch versus Andy Varela. I believe they went. Didn't they go in the?
Yes, they did.
West Coast.
Yes, that's the one where Andy actually beat BJ.
Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. And they're both. I believe they're both 10th Planet. Yes.
They are. Yes, so they're probably gonna meet second fight if they get past. But I honestly think Cade is the sleeper there. I think Cade is one of those guys that he's got that nice, beautiful darts that he catches from everywhere. He's dynamic. He can wrestle. He scrambles well. I mean, we can't sleep on him. He might be the youngest one there, maybe in that division, but I think that he's one of those dark horses as well.
I think it would be interesting to see him versus Mika, because Mika fought Tai in the gi in the finals of Worlds, but we could argue that Cade is likely I wouldn't want to say reckless, but the more submission aggressive than of the two Ruotolo brothers, and I think that is a dynamic that could bode well for him versus Mika. Also, important to note, we saw Tai versus Mika go to the razor thin referee's decision at who's number one, but we haven't seen Cade versus Mika, and I would very much see Cade versus Mika.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Two young guys, two young cats.
Yeah, and they're both they're not willing to have too much dead air time. Let's call it. They're not like. You're not going to have time to go up and use the restroom or go up and get popcorn during it. Put it like that. You're going to have no time. Don't even blink, because even that's not safe. But I think that's my kind of breakdown of how the bracket stylistically goes. But I say a safe bet to see him, let's say, the semifinal, or let's say making it to the semifinal. JT Torres, I think, is, of course, a very safe.
Absolutely.
He has just been so incredible. I think that somebody with the skill set of Dante Leon is also really good. I think that he could do a very, very good job in this bracket. He has a very similar sort of attribute set as JT Torres. He's very physically strong. I've seen some videos of Dante Leon lifting weights in his garage in the Gaines dungeon, and he's very physically strong human being. He's got great wrestling. Majid Hage is one of those guys that he is, when he's on, he is on. And it is like, whoa, who is this guy out here competing right now? I believe he fell short in the trials that Roberto Jimenez won. He fought Roberto in the final.
Right.
That was an incredible performance. And then the West Coast trials look like he just struggled a little bit more in the bracket. But I think that if Majid Hage comes and he's on point, then, man, I could see him taking it far too. He's that good. But I like the chances of Nicky Ryan, Mika Galvao, Cade Ruotolo. I think of those names like that are people who I would maybe see. But again, these are just things that, depending on the day, could be one way or the other. It's just so hard to tell with this bracket.
I agree, and I think stylistically for JT, somebody to give him a problem standing because he's got amazing wrestling. He's very precise. It'd have to be somebody that's very explosive, like quick. I think that somebody like Nicky Ryan would be a slower pace for him, which I think fits him perfect, fits JT perfect. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be a very precise game. But somebody that puts the pace, like Renato or Andy or Mika, that just explodes. I think those are pretty good, exciting fights that I like to see.
Yeah, I would agree. I would love to see like the matches that we described earlier. Some dynamic people like Mika Galvao, William Tackett running that back would be great. William looked so improved at the West Coast trials, and William also his road to ADCC. I believe he did like 14 matches getting to ADCC, getting all the way to the finals of East Coast, and he fought and lost a razor thin match. I mean, it was so incredible to watch versus Cade Rotolo, and then blazed through the West Coast trials, looked fantastic. So definitely well earned for William, and I think he's going to be hungry. I think that's a big thing. Is William is going to be very hungry going into the ADCC, whereas everybody's hungry, but he's got something to prove, maybe.
Right. I agree with that. And again, we said this division's stacked. I can't wait to see it. And like I said, every fight, even from the beginning, is going to be insane.
Absolutely. And that kind of takes us into do you have anything more you'd like to add? Ty's coming off, Hector. If there's anything more,
no, man, let's go with that. I think again, like I said, that's going to be an exciting division. I honestly think it. I don't know. I kind of see a little upset. The new generation coming in. There's a lot of new generation guys in there. Youngsters that are hungry, and man, they're gonna give JT a run. They're gonna go after him.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that JT is the kind of champion that has the skill set and the tenacity and the mental fortitude to most definitely he has the opportunity to go for a three-peat here. But it will be unlike any of his past ADCCs. Not to discount his past two ADCC performances, but it's a unique thing. He's going against a bunch of hungry kids. Like all these kids they're grown up and they've been doing jiu-jitsu since they were 5. Like it's a different thing now. People aren't starting jiu-jitsu when they're 17 anymore. They're starting when they're 5. So this is a different sort of atmosphere, and I'm really excited to see. I'm excited to see how the champ takes it, and I'm really more just excited to see him compete again as well, because his jiu-jitsu, especially in the ADCC rule set, is something to behold.
For sure. I agree with that. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So, under 88?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Under 88, some of the returning champions, Mateus Diniz. We have Santeria Luis, Elias O'Flanagan, Giancarlo Badoni, Mason Fowler, Jay Rodriguez, Izaki Bayens, Alexandre de Jesus, Roberto de Farias, Isaac Michel, Shunji Hibero, Josh Hinger, Tyra Tolo, Wagner Hocha, Lucas Hulk Barboza, and Pedro Mourinho. Now, I know I just said one. This is what I mean. You can't say which one's more stacked than the other, because when I read that, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all this list is insane. And Mateus Diniz, I know last ADCC he had defeated Craig Jones in the final. Looked fantastic in defending the leg locks, by the way. That was Craig Jones got to the final, and he looked great. He looked absolutely so much better, even than his last performance, which was good, which was also great in 2017 in Finland, where he defeated Leandro, where he defeated he beat Joe Sonnen, the man from Westland, Oregon. But
undefeated, undisputed.
What'd you say?
I said undefeated, undisputed.
Undefeated from the mean streets of Westland, Oregon. But Craig looked so great in that tournament, and then Mateus was able to stifle that part of the game, and he had to go through some extreme defensive lengths to ensure the victory, but he really did. I think he got more guard passes than anybody in that division that year. It was a really, really great performance. But he's met with some names like Mason Fowler, who qualified actually in the under 99 kilogram division and is moving down to 88 in this tournament, which opened the door for somebody else who we'll get to move up to the under 99. But then you have names with also incredible statistics, just as Mateus Diniz, like Izaki Bayens, like Alexandre de Jesus, who competed on EUG. He beat Lucas Gualberto, and he lost to Ronaldo Jr. at the last EUG show. in the gi. But what's interesting about that performance that Alexandre gave was, I believe it was right after his ADCC training camp to win the South American trials, the second South American trials. And he showcased an incredible wrestling base. And I think that in the gi in that tournament, he was so accustomed to the wrestling and so accustomed to the ADCC style that it was almost like he didn't do much gi in those matches. And he still looked fantastic. Against Lucas Gualberto, he looked like an immovable object. I think he poses a very interesting challenge in this bracket, as well as Isaac Michel. Isaac Michel has recently come off of the Who's Next season finale, whenever we had that crazy 2 hour plus long match against Kyle Chambers that looked like it was never going to end. But he looked like he was getting better as time went on, whereas I might have died of a heart stroke or a heart about 45 minutes match. He was going harder at 2 hours, which I think shows a lot of mental fortitude as well as it does physical conditioning. Of course, he will not have to fight even more than 30 minutes maximum any match in ADCC. But it is worth mentioning that he's willing to go those extreme lengths. And then you have people like, the invites. The invites in this bracket, by the way, were Shanji, Josh Hanger, Tyro Tolo, Wagner Rocha, Lucas Barbosa, and Pedro Moreno. But I want to hear kind of some of the names that you're looking at in this bracket, because I have a lot to say. But
honestly, you can't sleep on the veterans. You've got Wagner Rocha, you've got Lucas Barbosa. Those guys have been, they find their ways to the finals, and again, they're going to have that extra, let's say, the experience of being there. I think those guys, can really stop some of these youngsters from getting past in the second round. Obviously, Ty, he's been looking amazing. He's been out there putting in the work. He's been taking people's names and doing his thing. Again, back to the Darce, amazing Darce. They catch it from everywhere. Izaki, he's one of those explosive guys as well. Young, and man, I see a lot of good guys in there. And again, you can't sleep on any of these guys. Badoni, man, careful. You know what I mean? This guy's a sleeper, so he can surprise a couple of guys in there as well.
Yeah, and Giancarlo Badoni and Jay Rodriguez recently had a match on Who's Number One as well. And J-Rod came up short, but J-Rod is, I think, Giancarlo Badoni, being a black belt under, I forget who, but he's a black belt, and he trains at New Wave with Gordon Ryan. And he has showcased at the East Coast Trials. He showcased incredible wrestling, and I say incredible because I believe he went against Elder Cruz, who is known for wrestling, and fantastic. And I've actually had the pleasure of grappling Giancarlo. And I say pleasure politely. He toe-held me and submitted me. But I did grapple him. And he is very physically strong as well. And he's got a great eye for submissions. Like, you as a coach know this. There's certain times in a match, whether you're watching it or you have a student, and you just know that they have an eye for when a submission is open. And it could be in a position we call it a scramble, but really a scramble means that you don't know what's going on. Really, it's more like a formulated chaos. Let's say you're in Spider Guard and you're about to sweep somebody and they put their hand on the mat and then they get caught by a triangle or something. Those kind of students just have a really good eye for submissions. I think Giancarlo Badoni is one of those people. And he has a very good eye for catching things right when they're open. My foot was only open for a second, and he grabs that toe hold and submitted me with it. And I think that he has showcased that many times, but he's also very, very, everybody at New Wave is very tactically based, training under John Danner. But on the flip side, I want to talk about Jay Rodriguez, 7-0, all subs at West Coast Trials as a blue belt. Nicky Rod's brother, so, keep it in the family. You're a blue belt, purple belt, submitting people, submitting black belts. But Jay Rodriguez, it's interesting. It seems like he starts matches sort of slower. But he has this ability to put the pace on so crazy hard. It was cool to see, the Who's Next reality show was filmed before West Coast Trials and released after. And for him to win the West Coast Trials with a buggy choke after getting submitted by Renee Souza via buggy choke in the show was really, really poetic. And it screams, this kid learns fast. He learns quick. If he loses, he's coming back much better the next time. There's no setback that isn't going to have several steps forward for him. And I think that we're going to see the best Jay Rodriguez that we've ever seen. And we already saw one that blew through a bracket at West Coast Trials. We're going to see an even better version than that at Worlds. And I think it's trouble for people like the returning champ Mateus Diniz. And I think that some of the veterans like Shunji, like Josh, like Wagner Rocha, I would say veteran-wise, even like Lucas Barbosa, because he's been competing for a while now.
Right.
You need to watch out for kids like Jay Rodriguez because these kids go. And I say kids, I mean, he's probably not that much younger than I am, but these guys, these young guys who are hungry for their first ADCC, they're willing to put everything out there, and they're going to be pushing the pace from start to finish. And I think that that's going to play a big factor in this match or this bracket. And the matchups, how the matches play out, is really what's going to decide this bracket. Like, if this bracket is formulated 5 different ways, we might have 5 different champions.
I agree. I have to agree with you on that. Again, like I said earlier, I think the experience is going to give a lot of these youngsters, problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one guy that you can't sleep on is Mason Fowler. Man, this guy's good. He got stuck at brown belt for a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. He was there for a while. We were wondering, hey, when are we going to see him in the black belt division? But again, this guy, he's been around and he's quietly just working his way up. So that's a guy that can give a lot of people a hard time.
Yeah, he qualified in the 2017 West Coast Trials, or was it the 2016 and 2017 West Coast Trials, and then he qualified again at the ADCC East Coast Trials later, because I remember he competed, or it was 2018 and 2019 West Coast Trials, because I remember he competed in the 2019 Worlds, and he fell short to Craig Jones in a very close match. And then he actually, Mason Fowler was the Submission Underground absolute champion. And I believe he still is. I just don't see any Submission Underground events very much anymore. But he was Submission Underground absolute champion for like ever after he took the title from Craig Jones twice. Right. He had beaten Craig Jones twice in that rule set. But I think you're right. Mason Fowler is definitely somebody that we really need to keep a close eye on, because he's also an ADCC veteran, and he won trials twice. And he's got great wrestling, and he showcased some really, really great performances. I mean, man, he had that crazy match at the 2020 Pan Ams versus Andy Murasaki in the finals of the Absolute division there, and that was just a barn burn. That was a war. And they both just showcased such not only incredible jiu-jitsu, but willpower. Like, they were both tired. You could see it, but they were still pushing it so crazy hard. One name that I think really stands out is Wagner Rocha for me, because I think Wagner Rocha has this very interesting sort of trump card that comes out whenever he gets put in a single leg, and that's the Kimura trap. And that is shown to be such an incredible tool for him on so many different occasions. He used that to incredible success versus AJ Agazarm. I remember it was at the finals of a trials event, and he got this Kimura trap on AJ Agazarm and just wrenched it. And AJ's made of rubber. He doesn't tap. But I remember that was the first time I saw Wagner Rocha use the Kimura trap with my own eyes. And then every match I saw, people are scared to shoot single legs on him. For the same reason they'd be scared to shoot a double leg on Pedro Mourinho, they're scared to shoot single legs on him, because that Kimura trap's coming, and he's very, very good at it.
True. I agree. And again, I think you're going to see a lot of Kimura traps in the lower weight divisions from here down to the 66 and the 77, especially I know, a lot of guys in the 66, they use it a lot to counter that single leg. So you'll see, I think Mario Hayes, Baby Shark will be using that a lot. Mm-hmm. I think Kennedy as well. They're very good at that Kimura trap. But again, Wagner, the experience, knowing, and he's got a great Kimura trap system as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the names also that we might see fight each other, or that I would very much like to see fight each other. I mean, we're going to have to see Josh Hinger versus Tyro Tolo second round.
Right.
They are both autos. But it's interesting, actually, because we have 3 autos competitors in the 88 kilogram division this year. We have Tyro Tolo and Josh Hinger. So it'll be interesting to see how those play out. But I would like to see Barbosa versus Pedro Mourinho. I like that matchup. That's just a good old fashioned slugfest. It's just two very strong physical competitors, physical specimens really colliding. And I think Wagner Rocha versus Shunji Hibero would be really cool, just to see two veterans go at it. I think that's just like a sort of a timeless classic that we would get to see. I mean, they both can be competing for so long, and they're both so good. That would be really cool. I would also like to see Mason Fowler versus Giancarlo Bodoni. I think we were talking a lot about them earlier, and it just, really, they both are. I mean, Mason Fowler is the ADCC veteran of the two, but Giancarlo Bodoni possesses a skill set that I think meshes well with Mason Fowler, and I think Mason is going to use very good wrestling, as he always does, but Giancarlo Bodoni's wrestling has become so much better as well, and I think it'd be a big thing in this bracket. This is another one of those brackets that, five different brackets, 5 different ways. It's just, it's too hard to call. It's not as cut and dry as, let's say, a bracket with like Gordon Ryan in it. And like Gordon Ryan has proven to be sort of a step above some levels of competition, but in this bracket, Mateus Diniz has a lot of tough competition here that are looking to prevent him from repeating his title. People like Isaac Michel, interesting to note, he has trained wrestling with Olympic level wrestling talent, and he has learned and been honed by Olympic level wrestling talent. That's another echelon, right? That's like me saying I trained with this great black belt who won world titles, and then somebody coming out to me and saying like, okay, I was tutored by Hoyler Gracie my whole life. I'd be like, okay, you got better coaching in that regard. Yeah. It's different, and I think that's a huge thing as well. But I like this bracket. I'm very excited. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm very, very excited. It's like 10:30 here. I'm super jazzed about this. Talking about it. So it is very, very exciting stuff.
Yes, for sure. And again, some of the matchups I'd like to see would be Tai and Izaki Baez. That'd be a good. They're both go forward kind of guys. I think Lucas Barbosa and Mason Fowler would be another one that I'd like to see. I think those matchups are pretty good. And exciting. I think this bracket has a lot of ways it can go, and I think it's open. I think this division's open for anybody.
I think so too. Another matchup that'd be kind of interesting is Pedro Mourinho versus Josh Hanger, because you got the Hanger team, Mourinho team. It's one of those Instagram headline sort of matches, like who's going to win. Because if whoever guillotines the other person, they got to give up the name, right? Like one person can't call their thing the Hanger. And another can't call it the Mourinho team anymore if you get guillotined by the other person. Like there was never a Watson team, but when I got Comatined by John Combs, I'm never allowed to call anything a guillotine again. I lost that privilege. Yeah. So aside from the joke, that actually is a really good matchup because they both have great wrestling fundamentals and they both have a good guillotine. So how they would get the match to the ground and how they would navigate that, knowing that both of them have a great guillotine attack, would be very interesting to see stylistically. But yeah, and you know what? I think that the closed guard work and the experience. I mean, Shunji Hibero has more matches in ADCC than any competitor in ADCC history, I believe. He's been competing in ADCC forever, and so I think his experience is going to be a big factor, and his preparation is going to be a big factor in the bracket as well. I really do think that he is
I agree.
Something to keep your eye on. He's a veteran. He's very, very good. He's very experienced.
Yep. Well. Again, this is Mateus Deniz's division. Let's see who can take it away from him,
Man, yeah, you're telling me.
So we go to the next one, right?
Yep, under 99. You got Pertutiponen, Luke Griffith, Paul Ardilla, Joao Costa, Henrique Sassoni, Kyle Bame, Vinicius Trator, Rafael Lovato Jr., Kynan Duarte, Yuri Simoes, Patrick Gaudio, Nicholas Marigali, Elder Cruz, Craig Jones, Devontae Johnson, and Owen Livesey. So that big block of invites is a huge bracket. That in and of itself, if that was just, it would be world champion level. But then you have these great invites, such as Paul Ardila. And like I had mentioned earlier, both Paul Ardila, I don't know if it's Paul Ardila or Ardila, and Cal Bain, both won the West Coast Trials in their respective divisions. Paul Ardila winning in -99, and then Cal Bain actually won in +99, but dropped down to division. And I think that Cal Bain is definitely somebody who is a great front runner in this division. This is another open division. There's no returning champ in this division because Gordon Ryan moved up to +99, so the returning champ is not here. This is a completely open. Whoever, I don't know whose division it's going to take, and there's no defending champ, like I said. But if I had to choose somebody who I think would be, somebody like, let's say they could be the returning champ, I think Kaynan Duarte is a big name on the list, and I think he looked so great. I believe he won 88 kilograms in 2019 ADCC. Yeah. He was stopped in the absolute, of course, by Lachlan Giles, but he looked great in the 88 kilogram division. He beat Nicky Rod in the final very decisively. And when Kainan's another one of those competitors, like when he's on, he looks unbeatable. But in his way, his competitors, such as I think great competitors like Cal Bain, pose a threat. Cal Bain did beat Kaynan Duarte at one point on a 5 grappling super show, I believe. Yuri Simoes is an incredible competitor as well, not to be slept on. He's won the absolute title. Patrick Gaudio is great. Elder Cruz poses an interesting challenge, being a great wrestler. Craig Jones is a big addition in this bracket. For the same reason that Lachlan Giles was a threat in the absolute division, I believe Craig Jones poses an interesting challenge in this one. I think that a lot of the bigger competitors don't focus very much on the heel hook game. I think that's more of a lighter guy game. Similar to like in the gi, guard passing is so huge in the heavier divisions, but you don't see a lot of guard passes in the lower divisions. You just don't. It's harder to pass. There's some techniques that are just more common. Like Berimbolo is not a huge technique in the the upper weight classes, but it's huge in the lower weight classes. I think we're going to see a similar thing here, where Craig Jones is. It's going to be interesting to see how the heavier competitors deal with like the leg entries and the heel hooks and everything like that. Competitors such as Devontae Johnson, who is a physical specimen. I mean, he's so strong, so athletic, so hardworking. He's a great tactician. But how will he deal with like leg entanglements from Cal Bain or from Craig Jones or from Paul Ardila, who looked great at the West Coast Trials, looked fantastic, submitting Elder Cruz in the West Coast Trials. So I think that those are some interesting competitors. But if I may say, I think Nicholas Marigali, he has a lot of hype riding behind him going into this bracket. People are really impressed by him, and I am too. I think his performance versus Rafael Lovato Jr. was fantastic. I think he looked great against a great wrestler, keep in mind. But this is a whole bracket of no-gi talent. This is not just super fights. So far, Nicholas Marigali has done no-gi super fights, but not a tournament. He hasn't done multiple matches in a row in a tournament setting in no-gi. If I'm not mistaken, has he competed in a tournament yet?
I don't think he has. I think that he's been doing just the super fights. Yeah. But again, he's bringing a lot of experience from the gi, right, in tournaments. So he's fought, with big crowds as well, being in the finals. And again, lately he's been, there was a video of him, saying he's going to finish Craig Jones in, 2-3 minutes. Hey, it's possible. This guy, man, I've seen him compete, and his passing and everything. And I'm sure he's been working on his leg locks with, John Danaher and all those guys, and, being very defensive, but he's very long and lengthy. He moves like a cat. So I'm curious to see. I'd love to see him and Craig Jones go right off the bat from the beginning, just to, get them both fresh and go out there. But again, he looked amazing against Lovato. And again, you can't sleep on that guy. I think he's the dark horse in that division. But again, we're going to be able to see right off the bat in his first match, when he starts dealing with people, like you said, that start attacking the feet, start moving around. And that's going to be the interesting part. Like you said, is he ready for a no-gi tournament? That's the question.
I think so. And, one thing that's worth mentioning, I think, is that He is so confident. And confidence plays a big role in the ability to shine on tournament day. And I think that Nicholas Marigali is definitely somebody who displays incredible confidence in his ability. He definitely believes that he's going to be ADCC champion on Sunday. Like, he really does. Huge, huge thing. I think that, a lot of us as competitors, sometimes we're like, yeah, I really believe I can do it. But that's not the thing. Nicholas believes it's already happened. He just needs to go collect a medal. So that's one thing. Another thing, as we break these down, I'm starting to think Mo Jasm is a man of the people. And I think that he might even be the kind of guy that formulates brackets based on, like, how is this going to be a spectacle? How is this going to be incredible? They're seeded. Of course, the champion deserves a good seeding, but, like, let's get these opening matches kind of crazy. Let's make this an ADCC to remember, especially since he claims, and I don't know if he'd be able to, just quit like that. But he claims maybe he wants to go out with a bang. Maybe we do get matchups like Kaiden Duarche, Kyle Bain first match, just to run back. Maybe we do get like Vinicius Trattor versus Patrick Gaudio, and Yuri Simoes versus Elder Cruz, two great wrestlers going off at the bat. Craig Jones and Nicholas Marigali, just because they said stuff, let's shake it up a little bit. I could see that. And I think that names like Luke Griffith, who is a great competitor, I believe he trains out of New Wave, fantastic competitor and very big competitor as well. These under 99. And João Costa, who has improved so much in the recent years, doing a great job at the first South American trials. I think that if I had to say who is definitely who we definitely need to keep an eye on, performance-wise, I think Rafael Lovato Jr. poses a very interesting skill set. I think he's very hungry. I think he knows that we don't know how much more of Rafael Lovato Jr. that we're going to see because he just retired in the gi. Yeah. And whether or not he'll, pull a Brett Favre and come back, we don't know. But will he continue competing in no-gi? Maybe he wants to go out with a huge bang. And his wrestling is fantastic. He's trained with, I believe, Ohio State wrestlers, and or one of those great wrestling pedigrees. And he definitely poses an interesting skill set. This bracket, like we said, is wide open. I'm very interested to see Vinicius Trattor's bottom game. He's another product of Alliance Marcelo Garcia. And he has got a great guard. He made it all the way to the second place of 2019 ADCC, beating names like Vinny Magalhaes. And I think that he poses a great chance of making it to the semifinal. Vinicius Trattor does. He's very physically strong, very physically. He's got great cardio. He's got great resilience. In the under 99 kilogram division, he competed against Gordon Ryan last year, and he is actually I guess if you'd say Gordon Ryan left, he was the one that was in the final. So he's the returning second place winner of 2019 ADCC. So done a very, very good job for himself as well. And I think that he's somebody that we definitely need to keep an eye on.
I agree with you. I like to also see Kaiden Duarte against Nicolas Marigali. That's two styles that I'm curious if, Kaiden, they're going to play top. Are they going to wrestle? Right. I like to see a little bit of Nicolas's wrestling. He displayed it in the last couple of super fights he's been fighting, but he also showed that he can pass very well. So I'm curious if Kaiden will either pull guard or he would stay standing. What do you think?
I think Kaiden would likely try to utilize some wrestling. And here's why. Nicholas Marigali has had Kaiden Duarche's number in the gi competition. Since the Brazilian Nationals, Nicholas Marigali beat Kaiden Duarche. But this is no-gi, and this is ADCC. I do think that Atos Jiu-Jitsu has an incredible wrestling program. I think that their wrestling's fundamentals are incredibly solid. There's a reason why Andre Galvao is the multiple-time super fight champion. And all the Atos competitors typically do have great wrestling fundamentals and great judo fundamentals. So it'll be interesting to see how the styles of wrestling collide, because Nicholas Marigali has displayed great wrestling. I mean, we saw that against Rafael Lovato Jr., undeniable. But stylistically, in an ADCC rule set in no-gi, Kaiden Duarche versus Nicholas Marigali, it's a different matchup. I think that Kaiden Duarche will likely be hanging really heavy on the head, as he always does. I think he'd be hanging really heavy on the head. And I think that it's not likely. I don't think that Kine and Duarte would pull guard in this situation. I think that both of them will be going for the takedown.
I have to agree with you on that one. Yeah, no, this division again, it's open for anybody at this weight class, and I'm excited to see some of those matchups in those divisions.
Yeah, yeah. And with that, I think we go to the plus 99. The plus 99 division is
that's the one.
That's a crazy division.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, we do have an interesting one. So this is an interesting note. Before I list off the names, actually, I'll list off the names first. Heikki Jussila, Dan Monasoyo, John Hansen, Roosevelt Souza, Josh Saunders, Gordon Ryan, Nicky Rod, Felipe Pena, João Gabriel Rocha, Victor Hugo, Roberto Cyborg, Haisam Rita, Orlando Sanchez, Vinny Magalhaes, Max Jimenez, and Damon Ramos. So right off the bat, we know that Dan Monasoyo and Gordon Ryan will meet in the second round, given they both make it to the second round.
Right.
Which Dan Monasoyo, amazing competitor, punched his ticket. I mean, made it to the finals of the West Coast Trials, went to a different trials and won there. Now he's in ADCC. But he's in the Worlds for the first time. Gordon Ryan is an established name. We can more comfortably say that Gordon Ryan would likely make it to the second round rather than Dan Monasoyo. So that'd be an interesting matchup just because they both train together. No one in this bracket that I can see, other than maybe Felipe Pena, would know Gordon Ryan like Dan Monasoyo does. And competitors like him, competitors like Dan Monasoyo, Heikki Jussila, Damon Ramos, and Josh Saunders. These competitors have much less to lose. They are really dark horses in and of themselves because everybody's going to be looking at the other people. In the same reason that Nicky Rod blew everybody's mind in 2019, these guys can blow people's minds. Right. Because they're not expected, and this is not, don't get me confused, I'm not discounting anybody's skill, nor am I discounting anybody's chances to win. But I think for the common fan, or even for an analyst, they might say, like, okay, if we had to choose, who has a better chance of winning, we might choose another name versus one. But these guys coming into this bracket won trials or they were invited. And that means that they have what it takes to beat anybody in the world. And that is why they are in this group of 16 people. So I think that Dan Monasoyo, John Hansen, Josh Saunders, Damon Ramos, these guys most definitely are people that we need to keep an eye out on. And I'll keep the point on Dan Monasoyo. That guy is strong. I high-fived that guy at West Coast Trials, and I thought my hand exploded. It was horrible. And then he high-fived another guy, and I saw it on broadcast, and I was like, that poor man just got his hand broken by Dan Monasoyo. He's a gigantic human being. Plus, he kind of looks like, just a bigger, stronger version of Gordon. But, starting off with the other names, Gordon Ryan, first and foremost, definitely got to mention him. Right. I am not going to be the person that says, oh, it's Gordon Ryan's bracket, because I think that that's unfair. And I think Gordon would even probably say that it's unfair to say. Because here's the thing. Everybody knows how good Gordon Ryan is. Everybody knows and studies Gordon Ryan. Everybody buys his instructionals. So it's almost like we will have to see, will Gordon Ryan's fame be his undoing? Not that I want it to necessarily, but it's something that we got to think. It's lonely at the top of the mountain, and people are climbing up to get you. So we have sort of a JT Torres situation here, where somebody who is so dominant and who is so dominant, now he's got these people coming up who are hungry for his title. They're hungry to take the crown off of his head. And I think that Gordon, being the tactician, being the incredible competitor with the skill set and the work ethic that he does, he's going to make it as difficult as possible. And I think that the betting odds saying that Gordon Ryan would win are completely justified. But matchups like Felipe Pena in the ADCC rule set are tough. Like, if Felipe Pena and Gordon Ryan go in the ADCC rule set, I believe it'll be different than in the who's number one submission only rule set. Because Gordon Ryan he's a very, very smart competitor. fighting submission only and understanding that the match might go an hour, which I believe it went like 47 minutes before the match was called due to whatever happened. It's 47 minutes. You will have, if they don't meet in the final, it's a 10-minute match. Felipe Pena fresh for 10 minutes. And when Felipe Pena was fresh, it looked like he was keeping completely up with Gordon Ryan. In fact, there were a couple moments in the match where it looked like Gordon Ryan was like in a sort of a tough spot. Like maybe he'll get his guard pass if he doesn't make a right. So matchups like that, I think we need to definitely look at analytically and wisely to say, there are people who study Gordon. And I believe that Gordon definitely has an incredible shot to once again win ADCC. But there is a lot also on the line for Gordon in this match or in this bracket, right? Like, what if he gets injured?
Right.
What if the something happens in one of the matches and then all of a sudden he's thinking about the super fight with Andre, which I think he's very, very mentally strong. I'm not saying this will happen, but these are just factors. There's more factors than just jiu-jitsu that go into these brackets. And I think that he definitely is the front runner in the division. But I think names like Felipe Pena, names like Orlando Sanchez make it interesting. Vinny Magalhaes was the last man to beat Gordon Ryan. Of course, before he avenged the loss to Felipe Pena, he has avenged the loss to Vinny Magalhaes yet. But this is an interesting bracket. And I think that the introduction of athletes such as Victor Hugo is interesting because Victor typically known for gi competition, but he's very, very so well for a big guy. So he makes it interesting. And then people like Nick Rodriguez make it really interesting because Nick Rodriguez is great in the ADCC rules set. He's got fantastic wrestling. And I mean, shoot, he did make it to the final. One thing that's interesting is, Nicky Rodriguez, now people know him. He's not coming out completely out of left field anymore. Now he's a name, he's an established name. So we'll see how a studied competitor versus Nicky Rodriguez will go. But I think that those are the biggest names for me. João Gabriel Rocha is a very big name as well. He's done great. He's made it to the finals of ADCC before. I would be interested to see how he responds to the metagame of the heel hooks and everything like that. But it's a really, really great bracket. I won't say it's a completely open bracket because Gordon, of course, is just such a force to be reckoned with, obviously.
Agreed.
But I think that this is a bracket, like how hard of a bracket will Gordon have? And however hard of a bracket Gordon has dictates the rest of the bracket. And Gordon really is one of the keys to the bracket here. How this bracket goes is like, will Gordon Ryan, whatever difficulty he has. I mean, he has had difficulty in no-gi versus the styles of like Patrick Gaudian. And granted, that was back when the ibjjf rule set was not using heel hooks, but there was some difficulty in that matchup. And, Roberto Cyborg let his emotions sort of get, a little forward in that match as well. But Cyborg is another great competitor in the ADCC rule set. So it's definitely a very, very interesting bracket. I want to hear some of your thoughts.
Man, you know what? One thing that we didn't touch is that Nicky Rod used to train with Gordon. When they were in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, that's another situation too. He knows some things from Gordon. He's very aggressive in the stand-up area. He's going to put the pressure. He's going to try takedowns. Again, he's got that style to keep pushing that pace. And again, he's also, he's now in the B team. He's with Gordon's brother, right? Nicky Ryan. Hey, they know their game. So I'm sure that they've studied, and they know a lot of how John Danaher thinks. So I feel like they've got a little bit of knowledge of how Gordon moves and his favorite positions. So I think they'll avoid those positions. And I think that's a good matchup to start off the night. Why not put those two guys at it, right off the bat?
I think so too. And another great thing is, I will say John Danaher is an incredible mind in jiu-jitsu. But it's not like he's the only mind in jiu-jitsu. So, we can't discount the teachings of Lachlan Giles. We can't discount the teachings of Craig Jones, who is an amazing leg lock practitioner. And he's got great defense, and he's a good teacher. So, Lachlan Giles has an influence on Craig Jones. Craig Jones has an influence on Nicky Rod. Nicky Rod remembers the teachings of John Danaher, and Nicky Rod is trained with Gordon Ryan. The B team is a very good team as well. And it's funny that they're both based out of, I believe, Austin, right? Like, B team and New Wave are pretty close together. So that's another interesting thing that we got to remember. But, I mean, Victor Hugo's under 6 blades. Shunji Hibero is an amazing mind of jiu-jitsu as well. Haisam Rita is studying and working hard. Him and David Garmo are hard at work, and I mean, they both have done so great. Like, David Garmo he made it, I think, to the semifinal of the West Coast trials in the 88 kilogram division. So these guys they're coming up, and they're very forthright in their thinking. So I think that there's definitely not only one way to do things, and I think that all these teachers are coming together, and they're starting to figure this whole Nogi thing out. And it's very interesting to see how it's going to go. But I would like to see, I would like to see Haisam Rita versus João Gabriel. I think those are just two giants. Like, they're two of the biggest guys. As well as I would like to see Dan Monasoyo versus Haisam Rita. They're just seeing the biggest competitors in the tournament go against each other. It's a clash of the titans. Who doesn't love to see that? For the same reason that you'd love to see, big Godzilla and King Kong. It's just they're huge, and that's exciting. Or like Brock Lesnar, Shane Carwin was just giant because those two dudes are so huge you can't even imagine yourself in an elevator with them. But I would love to see those matchups. Like you said, Gordon Ryan, Nicky Rodriguez is huge. I mean, shoot, what if Mo Jasm put Felipe Pena and Gordon Ryan first round? I can't imagine I would be able to even hear myself commentate in that building. As well as, I think, Haisam Rita has a victory over Orlando Sanchez. But I think that putting Vinny Magalhaes versus Gordon Ryan first round is a great matchup as well. I think that everybody in this bracket, one thing that I would love to see out of the competitors is not to get caught up in the Gordon thing. There is sort of an X factor with some competitors. It's like Michael Jordan. If you're on the court with Michael Jordan, you might play worse because you're on the court with Michael Jordan. If you're in the ring with Conor McGregor, you might fight worse because it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much going on. There's so much pressure. I think that there's that factor. I really do. And I think that it is a well-earned factor. But I think that I would love to see the competitors go in there with confidence. And I think that is going to give the 99-plus division everything that it deserves, because this is a great lineup of competitors. But I think if they all go in there confident, sure of themselves, ready to go, believing they have what it takes, then this will not only be, possibly an upset division or whatever, but it will be a division to remember. And let's say Gordon Ryan goes out there and submits everybody. It'll be even more impressive. It'll be even more incredible. It'll be an even bigger stamp on his already improving legacy. But those are some of the matchups I would like to see. I would like to see even like Dan Monasoyo versus Nick Rodriguez would be really cool, because Dan is a product of the wave, and Nicky Rod left Danaher Death Squad. I like those matchups. I like Victor Hugo versus Felipe Pena. I think that's a good matchup as well, especially since they did not compete because Victor Hugo had lost in the absolute division of the 2021 IBJJF Worlds, where Felipe Pena was the absolute champion before being popped for whatever it was that he got caught for. But I think that that's a very, very interesting division. I like all those matchups. What do you think?
Man, one that I would like to see, Daniel and Nicky Rod. I think those two guys, that right off the bat, I don't know, just remember this, but I think they'll be the first round, just because I think they're going to put Nicky Rod on Gordon's side, right? To have that great matchup at the beginning. I like the matchup, like you said, Felipe Pena and Victor Hugo, but I'd also like to see Gordon, get his revenge on Vinny. I think that matchup would be great as well, right off the bat. Vinny's amazing, man. He's a tough guy. I've seen him compete, and I've seen him train. He's a tough competitor. Or why not do Cyborg and Nicky Rod right off the bat rematch? Right? Yeah. They had an amazing. It was amazing to watch the first time. Why not do it again? And those are some matches I like.
I like that too. This is a crazy bracket, and then there's so many storylines too. I mean, yeah, that fight between Nicky Rod and Cyborg was so close, I mean, you could see the emotion on Cyborg's face afterwards. Like, he couldn't believe it. But Nicky Rod almost like it was like just such a crazy dynamic right after the match. It was so tense. I would love to see that again. I would love to see that again. Man, there's so much. There's so many sector.
Yes.
It really is
great.
Now
we're going to the women's. Now we go to the women's.
Absolutely. And I want to say this under 65 kilogram division is nuts. It is crazy. I looked at it and I was like, no way. We have Bianca Basilio, returning champ, Bia Mesquita, Fionn Davies, Elvira Karpinen, Brianna Stay Marie, big name. We got to watch out for her. Very intense. Maisa Bastos, another big addition. Sort of a Diogo Hayes situation with the weight discrepancy. Right. Julia Maeli and Adele Fornarino. Sorry. My handwriting is horrible. But, man, first of all, Brianna Stay Marie. Absolutely incredible performances. I believe she won East Coast and West Coast trials blowing through the bracket, if I'm not mistaken. Just go insane. She looked so great in both of those competitions. She's great. She's well-rounded. Guard passing, guard play, leg locks. It is very active, good cardio. Really, really impressive. And I think that as far as like the newcomers in the bracket go, and what I mean by that is she established her name perhaps even before trials, but trials really cemented it. Like both those trials performances, Brianna Stay Marie is somebody you need to pay attention to, watch out for. And coming into a bracket with like names like Bianca Basilio, Bia Mesquita, Fionn Davies, and Maisa Bastos, the four names that we could argue are the biggest names. Like if we saw those four names in the semifinals, we might not be too like, wow, you know. But Brianna Stay Marie is the dark horse. Let's not be mistaken. She is the dark horse in this bracket. And I think that another potential dark horse, if we were to say that there's two, would be Maisa Bastos. And don't get me wrong, Maisa Bastos is an incredible champion. On her way to being, I mean, not only on her way, probably already the roosterweight female GOAT. She has looked untouchable in the gi. And at the no-gi ADCC trials, she also looked very, very, very good. So it'd be interesting to see how she deals with the pressure, with the weight discrepancy, because like Diogo Hayes, she is coming in as the lightest competitor. And it'll be interesting to see who she matches up against. Like, who do you put Maisa Bastos with first? Do you put her with a Bianca Basilio first, which I don't imagine that they will. I imagine they'll split up the brackets so that, you know, the four names that we had described are probably the higher seeds. But, man, it's a crazy, crazy bracket. I think Fionn Davies and Bianca Basilio, seeing them rematch would be insane, because Bianca, in that match, she beat a heel hook with a toe hold. It was Fionn Davies was going for a heel hook on Bianca, and Bianca returned it with a toe hold and tapped Fionn Davies. Or Davis. Sorry, I heard it's Fionn Davis, not Fionn Davies, by the way. I remember Howell had, it's Davis, not Davies. I'm like, okay, sorry. But Bianca Basilio had done that, and that was an incredible performance as well. And she also just won an ibjjf world title in the gi. So just really, like, incredible bracket. What are your thoughts? I want to hear what you got to say, Hector.
I want to see Bia Mesquita with Fiona again. That'd be a nice matchup. Yep. Like you said, Maisa Bastos is a little on the small side for that division, but I think she's very technical, right? She's going to play the strategy game. I think she has an opportunity to be the dark horse in this division. Obviously, Bianca Basilio, she's a beast. She's going to come and she's going to go forward. I think it's going to come between them four, Bianca, Mesquita, Davis, and Bastos in that division. I mean, but you can't count out Brianna. I think Brianna, she's been doing well, and but I think that's where you're going to see the winner come out of.
Yeah, honestly, and you know, this goes as well for the plus 65 division, as well as every single division. There are some names that may not be mentioned on this bracket breakdown, and it's not for lack of, you know, talent recognition. What it is these brackets are so incredibly crazy that we could definitely see the next Nicky Rod situation. We could definitely see the next Brianna Stay Marie situation where somebody just comes out of nowhere. It's even though they got invited and they make history. Like, going from, you know, the person who didn't even seemingly have a chance or who wasn't mentioned to the champion. And that happens, man. Like, some of these kids 5 years ago weren't even trained. You know, they were green belts. Like Mika Galvao, I remember meeting him when he was 14 years old. That was 5 years ago. He was a green belt, black belt, on a blue mat that I at a Brea Jiu-Jitsu with Dan Lucart. I remember meeting this kid and being like, who is this kid? Now he's competing ADCC, and he's one of those favorites to win the bracket. So this is definitely, like, you know, for the competitors that we haven't mentioned, it's a huge opportunity. And absolutely, competitors like Brianna Ste Marie or Amy Campo, for instance, have proven that you just need to be on point. You have what it takes. But some of the matchups I'd like to see as well in the under 65, I would love to see Bianca Basilio versus Brianna Ste Marie. I think that, you know, like taking Brianna Ste Marie after those incredible performances, put her against the champ. Like, just go against the champ. Let's see how it goes. Because that test, and Brianna's the kind of competitor that is going to rise to meet that challenge. She's just a force, man. And seeing her at the trials was just something special. It's like watching a giant snowball go down a hill, and you just get to witness what it crushes as it goes down. It's really, really impressive stuff. But I'd like to see that matchup, as well as Maisa Bastos versus Brianna Ste Marie, because Brianna's a little more close to the same size as Maisa. Some of the competitors are very physically strong, like Bia Mesquita. I think Bianca Basilio and Fiona Davis are the four names that they're very strong competitors, like very physically athletic competitors. But I would like to see Brianna Ste Marie versus Maisa Bastos as well.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with you. Again, I like to see Bianca and Mesquita go at it. You know, we can do Fiona and Brianna. That's good matchups as well. I mean, they have a similar style, Davis and Brianna. So that's matchups I like to see. I just think it's going to be tough, you know, when you've got experience from Mesquita and Bianca that's been there, Fiona. This one is, like I said, it's going to come down to those four in this division.
I agree. Man, it is, and it's just such a crazy it's such a crazy tournament. It's such a crazy tournament on both sides. But the plus 5, I guess, is where we're going to go next. Last one.
Yes, sir. But you know what? There's another one that a lot of people don't in that division, you know, that I think can make a little bit of noise is Adele. Adele? Is that how you say it? From Australia? I watched some of her matches. She can be a little bit dangerous. So that's another one that you can look out for and make a name for herself.
Yeah, like I said, it is there is no shortage of talent. Every one of these competitors are fully capable of winning the ADCC under 65 kilogram division in the females. I think it's I would, and like an upset, yeah, of course it'd be crazy because of the name, but they all deserve to be there and they all have the skill set to win. So don't be shocked if you see a lot of upsets as ADCC.
For sure. Yep. Giles demonstrated that anything is possible.
Oh yeah, for 100%. I think when I saw Lachlan Giles, who is a like a featherweight, submit Muhammad Ali, who looks like Brazilian Superman, I started to believe it. I was like, anybody can win at any time. That is jiu-jitsu right there. That was I don't think I've still gotten over that. And that was like 3 years ago.
Yep, for sure. All right, let's hit this one right here.
All right. Gabby Garcia, Giovanna Jara, Amy Campo, Eleftheria Christodoulou, Spaghettis, Elizabeth Clay, Kendall Rusing, Nikki Lloyd Griffiths. So the names that stand out in this one, are, of course, Gabby Garcia, of course, Amy Campo, of course, Rafaela Geddes, but also invited Elizabeth Clay, and Kendall Rusing is in the bracket as well. And I think those are the big names. Would you say?
Yes, I agree with you. I think those are the biggest names in that division. I think that if I had to pick a dark horse, it's going to be Amy Campos.
I think so too. Seeing the way, and this is all respect to Elizabeth Clay, but the way that she beat Elizabeth Clay was eye-opening because Elizabeth Clay is an incredible competitor, and she has always been. I mean, she was the youngest invite to ADCC in history, right? She was 16 when she was invited. Wow. If I'm not mistaken. I believe she was 16 when she won the trials.
Mm.
And that means that now she's probably like, 20, 21. So she is, she's only improving. So names like Elizabeth Clay and Amy Campo definitely going to keep an eye out for. But Amy Campo of the West Coast Trials, again, another competitor that just put on a special performance. It was really, really something. And she's aggressive. She made it to I believe the absolute final in the 2022 World Championship. Was it the absolute final where she fought Gabby Pisagna?
Mm-hmm.
Because Gabby Pisagna fought Yara Suarez, and Yara Suarez actually lost to Amy Campo in the gi. So Amy Campo from Zenith
she's legit.
She is improving, and she is already at the top of the what is it, creme de la creme? Is that what Nate Diaz? But she's already at the top of the heap. So I think that she's, I would even say she's more than a dark horse if you ask me. I would say that Amy Campo could definitely be someone that could beat Gabby Garcia. And I think that Gabby Garcia is, obviously, she's queen for a reason. But Amy Campo, she's a heavy hitter in this bracket. Of course, Gabby Garcia has done so well in the ADCC. She's very, very good in this rule set, being the multiple-time champion. But, competitors like Amy Campo and Rafael Geddes are both. Rafael Geddes, Elizabeth Clay, Kendall Rusing is another name that's going to introduce a lot of problems in this bracket. Kendall's so aggressive. She's hungry. She's pushes the pace. Like I said, she's just tenacious. Elizabeth Clay, a tactician, been doing jiu-jitsu from a young age. Great leg entries, great leg defense, very good guard, good passing. She's experienced in this rule set as well. I think Rafael Geddes, the interesting thing that she brings is she has this thing that Autos competitors have, and it is, I oftentimes bring it up when I commentate Autos competitors because I want people to notice it, but their hips are always facing their competitor, and that speaks to an incredible base. So what I have seen in my own experience of jiu-jitsu and in watching competitions is if my hips are not facing my partner, that means that my direction of power is devoted somewhere else. So if I'm facing my partner and I push because my hips are facing them, that's the most power I can generate, and I'm pushing into them, right? If I face my hips, if we're both facing each other, then it's going to be hard to push me because my center of gravity is forward. The Autos competitors, even when they're knee cutting, even when their knees are like bent sideways, their still hips are facing their partner. And that is such an incredible thing to be good at. It's something that Gustavo Batista does well, Andy Murasaki does well, Rafael Geddes does well. This is a different competitor, but Ana Carolina Vieira does well. Their hips are facing their partner, and it is incredible. It is so impressive. And I think that is just like the base of Rafael Geddes will be an interesting thing in this bracket too, because who's going to sweep her? Who's going to take her down? We're just going to have to see.
Right. I agree with you. I think a good matchup I like to see, and somebody that we're not talking about a lot, Giovanna Hara. She's tough. I like to see her with a Rafaela right off the bat. I think that's a great matchup. I think Kendall and Amy Campos would be a good matchup I'd like to see. Or Amy and Rafaela would be a good one I'd like to see as well. Nikki's good too. I mean, she won her trials, and she's one person that we got to look out for as well. But again, the queen is still there, Gabby Garcia. Tough. It's going to be tough to get the queen out of there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And another interesting one is Elizabeth Clay versus Gabby Garcia, because Elizabeth Clay and Gabby Garcia did have a match, and it sort of ended in controversy, if I remember correctly. I think Elizabeth Clay was sort of unhappy with the decision that was given out in their match. So I'm very interested to see how that one goes as well, especially given the fact that I think Elizabeth Clay really wants that one back.
That's true. I agree with you. And again, I mean, all new generation, youngsters coming in, and again, they're all hungry, like you said earlier today. They want it, just like in every division. Everybody here deserves to be here. Again, it's the Olympics of jiu-jitsu, and I'm excited to see all these matches, and whatever Mo has in store for us. I'm sure he's going to give us a big show. So come on, Mo.
It really is going to be crazy. It is such a honor and a pleasure to be able to commentate an event like this. I know that I've commentated ibjjf Worlds, ibjjf Pans. I've commentated ADCC trials. I've commentated EUG promotions several times now, and I love it. Who's that guy? But I am very, very honored to be in this event. And something about commentary is just so special is you get to be a part of a moment that is going to be shared, a moment that's going to be appreciated. When what was it? Like when Mika Galvao and Tynan Dalpera fought. That is a match that for a time from now is always going to be replayed. It's always going to be memorized because Mika hasn't lost since then. Tynan hasn't lost since then. Who was the last person these guys both fought? Who was the last person to beat Tynan Dalpera? Mika Galvao. And I get to be a part of that because my voice and the voice, shout out of Danny O'Donnell, working for the ibjjf now. Danny O'Donnell, another person who, me and him got to share that moment. That's one of my best friends. As well as, when Victor Hugo made that incredible comeback versus Gutenberg Pereira at the Worlds, I was screaming. Or when Isaac Deuterling won his first World Championship, the first of what I hope will be a few. It was just, I got to be a part of a moment. So in the coming ADCC, the biggest thing is I'm just happy that I get to be a part of history. Such a huge event, and I get to kind of be a part of that. So it is a huge honor, and to be. All these matches are going to make it easy for me.
Absolutely. And of course, we can't forget the super fight, right?
Ooh,
the fight that everybody's been waiting for years, with all the drama that's been going on, the Stockton slap going on, the trash talking. Of course, Gordon's one of the best trash talkers in the game, and he does, but he backs it up, And we're finally going to be able to see the match. Andre looks like he's in great shape. I've been, watching his videos. He is ready to go. What are your thoughts on this matchup right here? Again, you're going young, new generation, a lot of experience. Yep. What are your thoughts?
Here is my genuine thoughts on the ADCC super fight. And when people listen to this, they might think I'm crazy. They might think I've lost it. I cannot actually give an opinion of who I think will win. And that's not just me being professional. If you asked me when I was wearing a t-shirt, flip-flops, and shorts earlier, and I was not on air, off record, I would say the same thing I'm about to say now. The reality is, I don't think there's a single competitor we talked about in all of the brackets that knows and thrives in the ADCC rule set, such as Andre Galvao. I think Andre Galvao is the kind of competitor who strategizes in such a way and is so hard to fight in this rule set for all the reasons. Not only is he able to turn it on and be aggressive, not only can he submit, but also who sweeps him, who takes him down. How does he get tired? He doesn't get tired. It looks like he just picks up as the match goes on. Even against Felipe Pena, he was still in his mid to early, maybe mid 30s, I think, right, Hector? Now he's late 30s, but he was only in his mid 30s versus Felipe Pena. And he looked fantastic. I think that we cannot just discard Andre Galvao's incredible ADCC prowess, not just his record, but how he fights, how he approaches matches, how he studies, how he is willing to learn new things going into a match such as this. Because listen, if the odds say Gordon Ryan -500 favorite, it's justified. He's done that well. He has won that many times. He's that dangerous, and he's that confident. Also, some things went for Gordon Ryan. Yeah, he's younger. He is possibly stronger because he's 4 inches taller. He has a great tactical mind in his corner in John Danaher, who's going to help him game plan for Andre Galvao as well. I will say that the strengths of Gordon Ryan in this matchup possibly do outweigh the strengths of Andre Galvao in this matchup. But I'll say one thing. There's not as much on the line for Andre Galvao as there is for Gordon Ryan, for the reasons that you said. There's a lot of hype. The hype was perpetuated by Gordon. And of course, let's call it for what it is. And Andre has said this on multiple occasions. The slap is something he wished didn't happen. He wishes he wouldn't have gone over and done the thing and gave the finger and then pushed Gordon or whatever. And of course, hindsight is 2020. But I think the ramifications of losing this match aren't as heavy for Andre as they are for Gordon, because Gordon, I mean, let's be honest, he has dug a grave. He's dug a very deep grave, and he intends on pushing Andre into the grave. But what happens if he slips and falls in? You get what I'm saying? This is one of those things that, like, Andre Galvao, I think, has less pressure on him from obviously I'm on the outside looking, basically on the outside, I can't even look in. But I think that this is a very interesting match. I think it comes down to two things. One, can Andre keep Gordon off of him? Because I think Andre does a better job of mitigating the leg lock game. He does a very good job of that. But if he lets Gordon on top of him, Gordon has displayed incredible passing pressure, incredibly stifling, exhausting, frustrating, limiting passing pressure. Andre Galvao has great passing pressure, but I think what Andre Galvao has more so when he's on top is he's safe. He's a very safe competitor. He's very knowledgeable about where he's in danger or where he could be in danger or where he might be in danger, and he still pushes forward. He's willing to go inch by inch, but he's not going to put himself out there. Whereas I think Gordon operates with a lot of confidence. He knows things are going to work. So, and usually they do, for good reason. But I think the key to this matchup is going to be the wrestling is going to be huge. If Andre Galvao can keep Gordon down or keep himself from going down, then he has a clear shot to victory. Not that it will, most certainly happen, but that, in my opinion, is the Andre Galvao key to victory. It is going to be take Gordon down, keep him down, don't get leg locked or don't get submitted off your back or swept. So essentially keep Gordon down, or don't get taken down, because Gordon on top of you is a huge issue.
Agree. And I'm curious what you think about Gordon doing his division as well. Remember, that's another factor as well. Let's say he gets to the finals, which I'm sure, he'll get there in his division, but he's also had to fight and then do the super fight. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, that could be, affect him as well. Because
I'll say what could happen, or not what could, as in what I think will. What, just like the possibilities. Let's say Gordon goes out there and he suffers an injury of some sort. Because ADCC, you saw how many black eyes and bloody noses and taped wrists and taped knees were at ADCC 2019. Imagine if Gordon Ryan suffers a minor injury in the first round, and that affects the super fight. Not only does it affect the super fight, it affects the second round, third round, fourth round. That's one thing. Let's say Gordon has war after war after war after war, and he just is tired for the super fight. Let's say he loses. That's a big upset, and that's in his mind before the super fight. Let's say he blows through everybody, and he goes to the super fight. That's another thing. That's like a polar opposite. Is he goes to the super fight? I just beat everybody. This is going to be cake. So I think that he has definitely chose a double-edged sword, but he knows how to wield a double-edged sword. That's the thing. He's not afraid of the double-edged sword. So I don't think that is too worried about the possibility of losing, and that's why he decided to do it. I think he's also trying to prove a point, which, hey, he's perfectly capable of proving this point. I think more power to it. But I do think that it is important to note that he has introduced some great level of risk. If you do a training session the day of your fight with Andre Galvao, that's a level of risk. But he's decided to do a whole world championship level bracket going into a super fight with Andre Galvao. And no one's ever done this before. No one has ever tried. I don't even think anybody's ever tried this before in ADCC history. He's going to be the first one. He wants to dip his toes in that water. I don't think anybody's requested it either, by the way. I think people usually don't request to do this, which more power to Gordon. I think it's very admirable that he wants to test himself in this way. But, yeah, no one's ever done it. So I think only time will tell. I think that we just have to see, how is Gordon going to feel? Because it could also be, how does Gordon feel that day? We know that, his stomach problems, praise God, his stomach problems have gotten better. And that's cool. I'm really happy to hear that. But we just have to wonder, like, how is he going to feel that day? He's done great even when he's not feeling good. So yeah, it's a super interesting dynamic, and I'm interested in seeing how Saturday goes, because how Saturday goes is going to tell a lot about how Sunday goes for Gordon Ryan.
Yeah, I agree. Again, he's backed up everything he said. He's done it, and I think that, like, getting to the finals, let's just say he gets with Pena and them have a war, right? Which, because it's usually 45 minutes, right? How many overtimes are we going to get, right? If they go all the way through.
Man, yeah.
You got a match of 45 minutes. Then you go do your super fight. That's another, what, 45 minutes? You've got,
yeah.
It's up there. So again, I'm curious to see. I'm sure he's prepared himself for that as well. Again, these guys, everybody that's competing at this, they've put 120% into their training, and I know they know that this is the Olympics of jiu-jitsu, and they're gonna go out there and give it their all. So, you know what I mean. I think we're in for a treat, and man, I can't wait till Mo releases the brackets and shows us exactly what he's got cooking up. And again, congratulations to all those guys that put on these amazing shows, the Sheik and everyone else, and everybody that has a percentage in this event. You know what I mean? You're going under the bright lights, and it's not easy.
Yeah, it really is a huge honor, and I'm very, very thankful. And everybody who's a part of the event, not just the promoters at ADCC, but like I said, Daniels, like we said, all the people at Flow Grappling, Kyle Grover, Brad Gross, all the guys behind the scenes. It is a huge honor, and it is like a crazy, crazy event. And I can't believe I'm actually like driving out to Vegas tomorrow to go and commentate this thing. Like, it's nuts to me, the reality of it.
Man, congratulations on your on your success. You've been doing it. Of course, you're still growing, and you've done an amazing job on our shows as well. I was happy to have you here, and we can do a little breakdown of what we're going to see this weekend. Thank you so much, Jake, for all the information that we shared today. I think this is something that people are going to listen to and take into consideration. And hey, let's see what happens on Saturday, right?
Absolutely. And Hector, Danny and I talked. I know that the Open Guard cast has been super silent as of since I had a lot of things come up in my life. I'm getting married here in 2 weeks. I just moved in. This couch is actually mine. I moved into an apartment. I've just been doing so much with career stuff and everything like that, and I'm gonna be picking the Open Guard cast back up. I'll be running it as the solo host of the show, and I'm gonna be having guests, and we're gonna be doing that again. But want to have you on there too, because we'll definitely
always.
But we're gonna be picking it back up, so it's not gonna die. It's not dead. Sorry, my baby.
Never, man. Well, thank you so much, Jake. Really appreciate it. See you soon, maybe tomorrow. And again, thank everybody for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Keep evolving in everything that you do.